First, the Kenya Defence Forces will not be on the street. They only come as a last resort. If the demonstrations will be peaceful, I promise you, the police will be there to protect the demonstrators.
The tension in Kenya is at boiling point as the country prepares to mark the 55th anniversary of SABA-SABA, a day that once symbolized the fight for multi-party democracy, but now mirrors a modern-day standoff between a restless generation and a government struggling to maintain grip. This year's SABA-SABA is not just a commemoration event, it is shaping up to be a nationwide protest movement driven largely by Kenya's Gen Z, who have emerged as the most vocal and defiant group in recent years. Unlike traditional demonstrations, these protests are unpredictable, decentralized, and fueled by tech-savvy youth who have consistently outwitted the state's propaganda and security strategies. The Ruto administration knows this, and this year it's taking no chances. Reports reaching dark files indicate that the government is taking unprecedented measures ahead of the planned protests. The Kenya Defence Forces elite Green Berets unit has been put on high alert, with some elements already deployed in strategic locations across Nairobi and other urban hotspots. Sources confirmed that the military has taken control of Statehouse and other key government installations, including Parliament and Defence Headquarters, a move that signals just how serious the state is taking the threats of public unrest. What's different this time is the scale and nature of the preparation. The deployment of the Green Beret, a special unit typically reserved for counter-terrorism operations and high-risk interventions, shows the government's deep concern that the protests could spiral beyond the capacity of regular police forces. It also exposes the extension to which the administration is rattled by the momentum and organization behind the SABA-SABA build-up.
If the demonstrations will be peaceful, I promise you, the police will be there to protect the demonstrators. But the police will also be there to make sure that the criminals, the fellows who come to burn offices, the fellows who come to loot property, will also be dealt with. That is my commitment.
President William Ruto's government has been on edge since the outbreak of anti-government protests in June, which saw thousands of young Kenyans flood the streets in opposition of the finance bill and police brutality. Those demonstrations, largely peaceful but forceful in message, took the government by surprise. Gen Z organizers, using social media platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, mobilized in real time, avoided police traps, and stayed on message despite infiltration efforts. Since then, the streets have been restive. The youth have continued to press for accountability, reforms, and a change in governance culture, demands that seem to be falling on deaf ears.
Kenyans were exercising their constitutional rights under Article 37. The military was deployed to Kenyan streets via Gazette Notice 7861, signed by you on 25th of June 2024.
The function of the Minister for Defense, by then me, is once the article kicks in, then I am supposed to do certain subsidiary legislation. I gazette. And Mr. Speaker, all of us know Article 132 of the Constitution obligates the president to protect the other arms of government.
With the SABA-SABA anniversary falling just weeks after the peak of the tax revolt, this year's protests are not just symbolic. They represent a continued defiance and a rejection of the political status quo. This explains why the government is now leaning on the military. The police have been overwhelmed in past demonstrations, accused of brutality, abductions, and even killings, all of which have further galvanized public anger. The Kenya Defence Forces, considered more disciplined and less susceptible to public manipulation, have been drawn into domestic security roles under the guise of protecting national installations.
I want to assure you of my commitment and that of the government of Kenya in supporting the Kenya Defence Forces in ensuring that the constitutional responsibility you have is discharged without hindrance. Again,
By taking over Statehouse, Parliament and other symbols of power, the military is sending a message. The government is in control, or at least want to appear so. But to many Kenyans, especially the youths, this move reeks of paranoia and desperation. It also raises a serious constitutional concerns about the militarization of civilian protest spaces and the shrinking room for dissent. What started as a peaceful pushback against unjust taxation has evolved into a generational standoff. Gen Z is no longer just reacting to policies. They are demanding a rethinking of Kenya's political and economic model. They have challenged not just Ruto, but the entire post-independence leadership structure that they see as corrupt, unaccountable, and out of touch.
To thank the KDF for their professionalism and integrity over the years of providing the security that we need and the stability that we need in our nation to be able to undertake nation-building responsibilities that is bestowed on our shoulders as the citizens of this country.
The heavy deployment of security forces could backfire. History shows that repression often fuels resistance, not silence. The youth, already agitated by cases of abductions, disappearances, and excessive use of force, are unlikely to be intimidated. If anything, the military presence may only harden their resolve. As the clock ticks towards Monday, Kenya stands at a dangerous crossroads. The stage is set for a confrontation that could define the next phase of the country's democracy. Whether the day ends in violence or triumph depends on how far both sides are willing to go. But one thing is clear, the government's decision to put boots on the ground is not just about crowd control, it's about survival. And in that equation, the youth have proven time and again that they are not just a fleeting nuisance. They are a force, one that no amount of military might can erase.
Now, what was the intention behind sending the military to the streets? Was a plan to shoot to kill demonstrators?
For peace, public order, public safety, where the police are overwhelmed, Article 241 3B kicks in.
The Kenya Defence Forces will not be on the street. They only come as a last resort. If the demonstrations will be peaceful, I promise you, the police will be there to protect the demonstrators. But the police will also be there